A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We are going to discuss today the next chapter of the course, Introduction to Morphology of Angiosperms, and that is about the stem. And we are going to discuss about the characteristics, functions, and modification of stems, and specifically different types of stems like underground, aerial, and subaerial stems. So we are moving towards the outlines that we will discuss today. So the first topic that we will discuss about the stem, that is its definition and its different characteristics. Then we will move towards the function of the stems. What does stem do, and how it helps plant. And then we will discuss about different modifications. We will then further discuss about different types of stems like underground stem, aerial and subaerial stems. So we will initiate first with the definition of the stem, which is very important, and we all discuss about the term stem, which is very common, but specifically we ignore or we don't know its definition. So stem is the ascending part of the axis bearing branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. And stem always develops from the germinating seed, and there is a portion which is called plumule. It always develops from the plumule, and whenever a seed germinates, the first portion which arises from the germinating seed is the radicle, remember, and then the second portion that originates is the plumule, and stem is actually the secondary plumule, or it arises from the plumule. Stem bears nodes and internodes. Now you will be thinking that what is node and internode, and probably you all know that. So node is the region from where different leaves and bud originates, and internode is the area between two nodes. We are going to discuss about the functions of the stem. So there are many functions that stem perform, but the two major functions are spreading out the branches and those branches bearing leaves, flowers and fruits. So as you all know that leaves perform the process of photosynthesis, flowers are the most attractive and reproductive part of the plant, and fruit of course is very beneficial, we all eat, and we use it for different purposes. The next function of the stem is conduction of water and minerals and photosynthesis. So how? As we all know that stem contains xylem and phloem, and phloem is used for the conduction of water, and xylem is used for the conduction of water, and minerals are transported to the whole plant via phloem, and it is the stem that is green in color, and it performs the process of photosynthesis. How? It bears leaves. Most major part of the photosynthesis is done by the leaves, but there are stems that perform the process of photosynthesis too. This is stem, you know, this is node, and these nodes are bearing these leaves. This is internode. The area between this is node and this is node, and this area is called internode, and this is the whole stem. We will discuss one by one the characteristics of the stem. The stem is an ascending axis of the plant and develops from the plumule and epicotyl of the embryo. We already discussed this point. It is generally straight and it grows away from the soil, and it grows always toward the source of light, and that's why it is positively phototropic and negatively geotropic. The growing apex of the stem bears a terminal bud for growth in the length, and always there are certain cells at the terminal portion of the stem that helps the whole stem or the whole plant to grow in length, and that is called the terminal bud. In flowering plants, the stem is differentiated into nodes and internodes. Now you are well aware of these two terms. The lateral organ of the stem, that is the leaves and branches, are exogenous in origin. What does this exogenous in origin means? They originate always from the cortical cell. You all know the anatomy of the stem, and there are portions like epidermis, cortex, pith, etc. So from the cortical region, the leaves and branches arises, and therefore they are known as the exogenous portions, or as they are exogenous in origin. The young stem is green in color, and that's why it performs the function of photosynthesis, and they bear hairs, and in some stem they are very visible and some they are not visible, but if the hairs are present, they are generally multicellular. In mature plants, stem and its branches bear flowers and fruits. We are going to discuss about the modification of the stem. So in some plants, the stems are modified to perform the function of storage of food, support, protection, and vegetative propagation. So these are the purposes on the basis of which stem is modified. So first of all, the stem has been divided into three types on the basis of these functions. The first one is the aerial type or the aerial modification. The second one is the subaerial modification, and the third one is the underground modification. So first of all, we are going to discuss in detail here in this lecture about the aerial modification. Subaerial and underground modification we will discuss in very detail in our next lecture. So aerial stem or aerial modification is a type of modification in which axillary buds are modified to thorns and tendrils for protection and support. So the main function of the aerial modification is the protection and support, and examples are rose and pea. So you all are aware of the rose where there are thorns and which are very pinchable in the skin, and their actual function is the protection. So there are three main types of the aerial modification. The first one is the creeper, the second one is the trailer, and the third one is the climber. The trailer are again divided into recumbent, decumbent, and diffuse types, and the climbers are divided into roots climber, stem climber, tendril climber, hook climber, and lianas. So these are the different types of aerial stem modifications. Subaerial modification is further divided into runner, stolon, sucker, offset, and the underground modification are divided into bulb, corm, rhizome, and tubers. you will discuss in detail here aerial modification, and here we are going towards the aerial modification of the stem, and that is the whole stem or its part gets modified to perform definite functions, as we already discussed. The different functions aerial stem perform, that is protection and support, and sometimes vegetative propagation, and the stem have certain the aerial stem have certain modification. The first one is they arise in axil of the leaf, and they bear nodes and internodes, and they bear leaves and buds. So these are different characteristics of the aerial stem. Aerial stem is modified into, as we already discussed, 3 types. The first one is the creeper. So creeper are plants that grow close to the ground, and they actually grow horizontally over the ground and produce roots at each node. Example is the Cynodon-dactylon. Cynodon-dactylon, you know, the common grass in the lawn, they are the Cynodon-dactylon, and usually they are called the Bengali grass, which is a kind of invader. Once you grow, it never vanishes, and they grow horizontally, and then they produce roots, and then they invade the whole ground. The next type of aerial modification is the trailer or the stragglers. The stragglers are actually weak stems that spread over the surface of the ground without rooting at nodes, and they are further divided into 3 types. The first one is the prostate, and the second one is the decumbent, and the third one is the third one is the diffuse. So we are going to discuss about the prostate or precumbent type. It is a type of the stem that grows flat on the ground. That the example is the convolvulus. And decumbent is a stem that grows flat but becomes erect during reproductive stage, and that is Percolaca. So convolvulus, you all are aware of the Prevate plant, and Percolaca is commonly called as Varhale. So if you recall the Percolaca plant, it grows flat, but when it is about to flower, its stem grows erect. And the third type is the diffuse type, and it is a trailing stem with spreading branches. The example is the Bauhinia diffusa. The next type of the aerial modification is the climber. Climbers are actually stems that are very weak and produce special organs for attachment. They always need support, and without support they cannot grow. So to climb upon the support or on other plant, they always need some special organs, and that special organs help them in climbing, and also help them to display leaves towards the sunlight and to position the flower for effective pollination. So these are different functions that the climbers perform. The climbers may be root climbers and they may be stem climbers. So first of all, the root climbers, these are the plants that climb with the help of adventitious roots, right? And these adventitious roots arise from the nodes, as in species of Piper nigrum. The next type of the climber is the stem climber, that is also called the twinner. And these climbers lack specialized structure for climbing, and they coil themselves around the support, and they get climb over the support. So examples are Ipomia and convolvulus, and these are very common plants. And if you look around, you can find these plants, and if you closely observe them, you can find these stem climbers and root climbers. Stem climbers are of two types actually. They may be clockwise or they may be anti-clockwise. So the clockwise, if they coil in a clockwise direction, then they are called the dextrose, and if they coil themselves around the support in anti-clockwise, they are called as sinistrose. And for both, the example is the Dioscorea, in which there are two types of the climbers, stem climbers, clockwise and anti-clockwise, which are called the dextrose and sinistrose, etc. The next type of the climber is the hook climber. Hook climbers are plants that produce specialized hooks, as its name indicates, and these structures are the modification of various organs of the plants. For example, in Atrabotrytis, the inflorescence axis is modified into hook, and Calamus, it is the leaf tip which is modified into the hook, and Bignonia anguis, Catty, it is the leaflets. The leaflet that are modified into curved hook, and Hogonia, these are the axillary buds that modified into hooks. So hook climbers may be of different types on the basis of the organ from which they arises. For example, leaf tip or leaflets or inflorescence, etc. Next is the thorn climbers. The thorn climbers are actually, these are the climbers that need support, and how they get climb over the support with the help of their thorns, as their name indicate, such as in Bougainvillea, which is a very common plant and found everywhere almost. The next type of the climber is the woody stem climber or the Lianas. Lianas are woody perennial climbers found in tropical forests, and they twine themselves around the tall trees to get light. For example, that is Bauhinia is one of the very common example. The next type of the climber is the tendril climbers, and the tendril climbers are actually, as its name indicate, that the stem or the plant part becomes modified into tendrils, and these tendrils are thread-like coiling structures which help the plant in climbing. This is one example. Here you can see this is a stem climber or stem tendril. So the stem or the branch, axillary branch, in fact, it becomes modified into tendrils, and this tendril coil itself around the support, and it gets climb over the other plant or support. So this tendril climbers may be of different types on the basis of their origin, that is from which part of the plant they arise, and that is they may be stem tendrils, that is example is the Passiflora and Vitis. They may be inflorescence axis like Antigonone, and these tendrils may arise from the leaf, for example is in Lathyrus or they may arise from the leaflets, like for example in Pisum sativum, and they may arise from the petiole, example is the clematis. They arise from leaf tips, the example is the gloriosa, or even they arise from the stipules, that is example is the smilex. And what is stipule? You all know that stipule is a small leaf at the axis of which a normal leaf arises. And another interesting example is the pitcher plant. And in pitcher plant, the midrib of the leaf often coils around a support and like a tendril, and it holds the pitcher plant in a vertical position. So these are different types of the climbers. The next type of the aerial modification is the phylloclade. Phylloclade is another type of very important type of modification, and that is actually has certain function. The first one, phylloclades are actually fleshy green, flattened or cylindrical branches of unlimited growth with nodes and internodes, and the nodes and internodes may be at short distance or short intervals. The leaves are modified into spines, for example, this is phylloclade is a characteristic of the xerophytes. So usually the leaves become modified into spines, and this modification is to reduce the transpiration of water, and of course the protection as well. This type of modification, that is phylloclade, is observed in plants growing in dry regions, as I mentioned in the xerophytes, and the stem stem is actually used for the purpose of photosynthesis. As the leaves gets modified into the spines, and then the process of photosynthesis is performed by the stem, and not only photosynthesis, but they also help plant to store the food. The phylloclade is also called cladophylls. Example is the opuntia and euphorbia tyrocalli. You can see over here, these are the phylloclades. These are the leaf-like structure, which are actually stem. Like you can see, this is a leaf-like structure, and this is the modified stem. These are the leaves which have been modified into spines to reduce the process of transpiration. And this is green in color, this phylloclade. Why? Because it performs the process of photosynthesis. We are moving towards the next type of the aerial plant, that is the cladode. Cladode is another type of modification of aerial stem. It is always with the limited growth. It is always with the limited growth and is flattened and cylindrical stem, and this is more or less similar to the phylloclade. And why they are with limited growth? Because they have only 1 or 2 internodes, and their stem nature is evident by the fact that they bear buds, scales and flowers. Whenever a plant portion is bearing buds, scales and flowers, and that means that that portion is actually a stem. And example is the asparagus and ruscus. In ruscus, the leaves are modified into spines mostly, and why? Again, to reduce the transpiration of the water. The cladodes are very short stems, and they also perform the process of photosynthesis. Next are the thorns. So thorns, as the name indicates, these are the woody structures. They are very sharp and pointed, and type of the or modified forms of the stem. They are either the axillary bud or the terminal bud gets modified into thorns. For example, Carissa, apical bud modified into thorns. The next example is the citrus, and Atalantia, the axillary bud is modified into thorns. So depending upon the plant, there may be terminal thorns, there may be axillary thorns, and the basic function is to protect the plant from different environmental conditions. So these were different types of the aerial modification. I hope you understand the lecture well, and to make this lecture I have used certain sources, and these are the different books that I consulted to make this or bring this lecture in front of you people. You can also consult these books, and beside books I use these different links from the Google. You can go to these links and you can search yourself. If you have any question, you can contact me, and anytime if you have any question, you can ask me. Thank you so much for listening, and keep in touch. Thank you.